mind over matter, where we flip the script on burnout and bring back balance into the conversation. Today's guest is Zoa Conner, a functional wellness guide with a physics PhD, a fierce belief in the body's power to heal, and a mission to make self care sustainable, simple, and smart. This episode isn't about bubble baths or fire routines. It's about tuning in, doing less, and feeling more alive. Let's discover how small shifts can unlock big energy and help us show up better every day. So, without the guilt, the grind, or the go hard or go home mindset. So, many people think self care has to be a long, perfect ritual. What's your definition of real self care in the chaos of daily life?
I think that just like your body expects you to breathe and eat and move, self care is an act that happens every day. The question is, what's the quality of your self care and how consciously are you making choices throughout the day that help you take care of you to the best of your ability?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, can you share a moment from your own life when you chose to tiny but powerful over perfect?
Well, I think that in today's modern world, there are so many options out there. So you can eat food and fairly easily obtain food, but it doesn't necessarily nurture your body. It just may add challenge. So it feeds you, but it doesn't nurture you. You have the option of doing all kinds of movement, but the movement that you're doing on any particular day may help you feel better or may it be draining and add challenge and potentially cause pain. So, in our daily self care practices, I think being adaptable and recognizing that it doesn't have to be the same every day is a really important part of keeping your self care practices sustainable and working for you, both mentally and physically. No one likes to feel like they're not doing a good job of taking care of themselves. But they also don't like to feel like it is so stressful to figure out what to do because there's so many choices that they can't even make a decision.
That's so real. We often forget that sustainable self care is often the most healing of all. So, you say rest isn't a reward, it's a requirement. Why do we still treat rest? Oh, she left.
Well, women, particularly in today's modern world, really love to feel capable, confident, strong, and so that means that they have a hard time asking for help and they have a hard time sometimes accepting feedback. So when a woman or a man is trying to figure out how should I change my self-care practices, we want to make sure that no one feels as if they're being judged for doing a good job or a bad job. And so it's always a matter of adjusting and adapting. This may have worked for you a decade ago, or even a year ago, or even 2 weeks ago. But now something has changed and different. And so to make it easy, you want to have a nice wide variety of self care options that you can draw on. And that way, you're never feeling like you're doing the wrong thing. You're just shifting from A to B to C as your needs change.
Mm-hmm. So, What mindset shift can help high achievers start prioritizing rest without guilt?
The great thing about high achievers is that because they have high expectations for themselves and the world around them, they accomplish great things in the world. The problem is that they tend to not value or give themselves time to rest and recover. So that means that they tend to burn out quickly. So I think for these high achieving people, really want to make sure that they are acknowledging the value of rest and recovery and restorative actions as much as they value the ones that propel them forward through life.
That's a game changer. When rest becomes sacred, not shameful, we reclaim our vitality.
The value of rest and restorative actions, like getting in the sauna, but not in order to sweat the entire time, but just in order to change the nervous system, or to take a slow, gentle walk in nature, or to sit and enjoy your cup of tea and piece of chocolate rather than scarfing it down because you're running to the next activity. These things help you sleep better, which means that you have a more productive tomorrow. These actions help you digest better, which means that you can have the nutrition absorbed to the body that you need in order to heal. And it means that you are more balanced and you're not constantly in a stressed state, which does change which parts of your brain are active. Whenever we're stressed, we're more worried about the short term and protecting ourselves, less worried about creativity and finding new paths and remembering and dreaming of the future. And I feel like for high achievers, these qualities are highly valued and highly important. How can you make wonderful things happen in the world if you're not sleeping and dreaming of a better future?
Absolutely. So, for someone who says, I don't have time, what are 2 to 3 practices that take less than 5 minutes but can transform the day?
So, the funny thing about people who are very busy and like it that way is that when they become less able to keep up their pace, then they tend to not have anything to fall back on in terms of how they handle and manage that lower energy level. So sometimes the body sends messages, but we don't understand what they mean. Let me give you an example. I know a woman who was accustomed to a very high stress job and she really loved it and felt like she was thriving, but she was having fertility problems. And so, while the desire to grow her family felt like it was equally strong to her desire to grow her career, indeed, she was prioritizing the career over the family in terms of her daily actions. Now, this particular woman at some point discovered that she was pregnant. And this should have been a joy, right? Because it was her goal to grow her family. But what I like to honestly understand is it was also her body's way of saying, okay, we are going to slow down. We are going to calm down because now you've got someone else to take care of. And so you need to eat and sleep and change your focus. And that was a huge message from her body. Not everyone gets that message or that opportunity. But sometimes when we are driving in one direction really far and really fast, we don't even acknowledge that we could take a turn and head a new direction in life. And messages from the body can give us that.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So, How can we create space for these without overhauling our schedules?
I think that creating time and space looks different for each person. For someone who's a high achiever, they might tend to think that they need a long time period in order to make something happen. But indeed, 5 or 10 or sometimes even 2 minute actions, particularly when they are stacked on top of another one, can make a big difference. So I had a client recently who we were talking about the value of walking and walking as being a way of helping her joints feel better. And she timidly told me that her walks were only 5 miles long, and sometimes she couldn't even do that every single day. And I got the impression she was feeling bad about it. And when I explained that I was thinking, how about let's get a 10-minute walk in at a time of the day when she hadn't been walking at all. And that might make a big difference because if you've been sitting for a while, doing wonderful things on the computer or whatever, and then a 10-minute walk just kind of changes the nervous system. And she was like, 10 minutes, is that enough to be useful? And I said, yes, but the use is different than what you're thinking. It's not about exercise. Now it's about a mental shift. Now it's about flow through the body of blood and lymph. It's about a change of nervous system and a change of state. So, another example might be when you are waiting for the water to heat up or your coffee to brew, you could take a couple of squats or a couple of heel lifts up and down or a couple of side bends. And you'd be getting some short duration movement through the body at the same time as you're already hanging out waiting for something. Or if you're waiting for the pan to heat up on the stove while you're making a steak, you could wash a couple of dishes or you could unload the dishwasher a little bit. That's an example of stacking activities. And you can stack wellness things as well. So you could stimulate your brain by listening to a podcast while you take a walk. You could listen to beautiful music while you cook. There's lots of ways to combine and stack short tasks such that you can get more out of your time without adding more demands on your time.
That's the beauty. Self care isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters.
You're absolutely true. And oftentimes, when I help people figure out a better pattern for their days and weeks that's self care oriented or taking things away, let's discuss for a moment morning routines versus evening routines. So many people find that they need a routine in the morning and a routine in the evening. But do you need both? So if you're the kind of person who has a hard time getting yourself ready for the day or a hard time making it through the day in the way that you want to show up in the world, I would suggest you focus on your morning routine. If you have a harder time releasing all that happened during the day and getting ready for bed and sleeping well and waking up feeling fabulous, then I would suggest that you focus on the evening routine. And for these things, you want to check on your food and what nutrients are in the food, and also the timing. Your evening routine, you want plenty of time to digest that food before you try to go to sleep so that your brain and your body can get into a healing state. If you are having a hard time getting going for the day, then maybe don't rely so much on the coffee and the caffeine. Uh, get your blood flowing, get your blood sugar raised, do some movement, and that will help you feel better faster in the morning. Mentally, if you're having a hard time getting things accomplished during the day, maybe morning meditation would help set up your brain so that you have a great day. Maybe instead you want to meditate in the evening, and that could be a calming walk outside. It could be cuddling with your cat or dog or children or partner. It could be laying in your bed, focusing on your breathing. But that would help you settle your brain from the day and shift away from all the busyness and the thoughts that are distracting from sleep and focus on the present moment and the feelings of the body and preparing you to allow yourself to relax enough to get that awesome deep sleep that your brain needs. So, morning routines and evening routines will vary, and you might need only one, or you might need both.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, you have combined science and soul in your work. How does your background in physics influence the way you approach wellness?
Well, my background in physics, being that I have experimental physics in my background, means that I don't mind playing around with things and seeing if they work. The job as a research scientist is to question the world and to see whether our current ideas about how the world works apply in all the situations that we can explore. So, in terms of wellness, you've got yourself, and you are a constantly changing creature. And there's a lot of information out there. But in order to figure out what actually works for you, that is an experiment. And it's actually called an N of one experiment, one test subject, you. And so the willingness to experiment and try new things and see, does this work now? Does this work later? Did this work a year ago? Does this work and in combination with this other activity? Do I like a lot of protein in the morning or do I like it in the middle of the day? Um, and taking into account the knowledge that you have acquired about yourself and the world and nutrition and movement, and the knowledge that I have acquired, they're going to be different sets. So when we combine our two sets of knowledge, me and the client, and my experiences with my body and your experiences with your body, then we can come up with a set of experiments and some ideas about what would work and what won't. But there's not just a right and a wrong, there's a whole lot of gray. And so the question is, what works now? What works when I feel a little better? What works when I feel a little worse? And the assessment and the judgment about it's okay if it changes. The beauty about a scientific fact is that it's only fact when all the scientists agree that it's true right now based on what we know. And as we acquire more information, facts change. And so that idea applied to yourself and your wellness allows you the flexibility to make changes and have it make sense. And it's not that there's something wrong or something broken, it's just that I've learned something new, or my personal situation, my body, my environment, uh, the people around me, my job, my home, something has changed. And now the conditions of my experiment are new, and I have to retest everything. So I use this idea when I help my clients choose their supplements or their detox protocols or their exercise classes or whatever they're doing. If just because you ran out of a bottle doesn't mean you buy the same bottle again. Let's assess it. Should you have that same thing again? Or do you need something different? Or do you need to take a break? So that experimentation to life is very valuable. And it's such a joy to teach that to my clients.
Absolutely. So, do you find people are more open to wellness when it's grounded in both logic and intuition?
I feel like people expect it to be one or the other, and then they are delightfully surprised and pleased when they find that there are quite viable ways of combining them together. So many of my clients are attracted to me because of my background in science and logic. But the fact that I combine the two is what makes it make sense for more people. Because even when I see people who are more interested in the intuition aspect, they still want to know why it works or why it might work. And so oftentimes I can give a variety of options for why it might work, but ultimately the fact is that it does work, and that is good enough. That is the experiment. So if I put 3 bottles in front of you and you really only want to pick up one of them, that's your intuition. I might have used my science to pick which 3 bottles to put in front of you, but we're still combining the science and the intuition. And so it works so much better when you can access both aspects.
Mhm. That blend of brain and body, science and spirit, it makes your work incredibly grounded and accessible. So, for
So the
some,
nice thing about being grounded, I was going to say the nice thing about about being grounded is that you're not heavy about it. So the grounded makes a logical sense, but the intuition makes it light and airy as well.
Mhm. So for someone stuck in all or nothing thinking about health, what's your message to help them find grace and progress again?
Trust yourself, ask lots of questions, and don't be afraid to try new things. And if it doesn't work, just try something else. And for people who need a little bit of help in this arena, I encourage you to schedule time for a conversation with me or consider coming on a wellness retreat with me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, how can listeners begin building a rhythm of self support without overwhelming themselves?
Well, I like to suggest that we look at the 7 principles of functional wellness and kind of assess which ones are you feeling like you haven't been very successful at working with yet? And which ones have you not even tried to work with yet? So, breathing, food and diet, movement, hydration, digestion, nervous system, and elimination and detox. And for most people, they've addressed some of those a lot, and others of those hardly at all, and they might not even know how. So it gives a good place of direction for figuring out what's a new step that I haven't taken yet that might be significant for me.
That's a soul reminder. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to begin with care and intention.
I love the idea of care and intention because the care is all about you taking care of yourself, because then you can take care of the people and the world around you even better. And when you do it intentionally, kind of like at my retreat, intentional vitality retreats, it's thoughtful, it's purposeful, it's directioned, And even if you decide to change directions, it's still intentional.
Absolutely. So Zoa Conner just gave us the permission slip we all needed. Self care doesn't have to be massive, it just has to be meaningful. Take a breath, feel the sun on your face, drink water like it's holy. Because your energy, your focus, your joy, they don't come from doing more, they come from supporting yourself better. So until next time, be kind to your body, gentle with your mind, and stay rooted in what really nourishes you.